All right, what's going on? What's going on, everybody? Here go with another episode of KAO Presents PreDrill. I am your boy K Alpha, and today I'm here with Fred,
Hey,
um, legendary Chicago musician, saxophone player, of course, Corliss High School alum. I mean, he's done a lot for the city of Chicago, but we're gonna get into all that. I don't want to toot his horn for him. No pun intended. So, basically, Fred, first of all, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Feeling good. How about
That's
you?
good. Hey, man. Hey, I'm literally just trying to get this thing going. So,
Yeah.
with with everything that Chicago has been through, and I feel like you are a double, maybe triple OG at this time. At this point in time, you've
Right.
seen how Chicago needs a constant bridge between the graduating class to the next class in terms of keeping up the dialogue. So that's really what this is about. You know what I mean? So shout out to the people who have already been there, um, with me for this endeavor, and people that are going to be joining in the future. So that's just what really this whole thing is about. So I'm gonna jump right into it. Fred, listen, with with you being a Corliss alum, you're somebody who I think has a reputation. So most alumni from Chicago who stay tapped in with the band world,
Mhm.
they at some point will venture out and help out with other schools.
Right.
It's easier for somebody like me who came from Tilden, a relatively unknown school. Obviously
Mhm.
we made a name for ourselves, but it was
Right.
easier for us to go to other programs after we graduated because there wasn't that much for us to be able to uphold after most of us left. But
Right.
for uh, more popular and more established schools like yours in terms of band programs, um, perhaps it may have been a little bit more difficult. So for you, why did you stick with Quarters more so as opposed to going to another school in the city? Your let's say Julian or a different school to continue to teach.
Well, first off, schools like Julian, that was our rival. So at the time, they still had Mr. Key and things, and it was like, I like y'all, but we're gonna keep our distance on that.
Yeah, yeah.
but as far as Corliss though, yeah, like I came to Corliss in '99. I met Mr. Burton and things. He first of all he loved that I came in playing already, so I was already in his pocket then. But
Mm,
after I graduated, really it wasn't much alumni coming around to help out. And then as far as the Woodwind players, we didn't have many that was really dedicating much time to make sure the other high school students that were left around played and learned what they needed to learn. So I just chose to stay around. I became Mr. Burton's like right hand man in the way for up until he retired, and then that was it. But yeah, I just had the love for it. I wanted my program. I wanted to see my school continue to thrive and flourish as long as it could. So
yeah. Tell me a little bit about Mr. Burton. You know what I mean? Like, what was he like as a band director?
Mr. Burton was he was a father figure, definitely. Um, he was your huckleberry. That's what he always said. I'll be your huckleberry, baby. That's what they tell you. But he was very cool, father figure, very strict. He knew what he wanted down to the T. If you didn't give it to him, he was gonna make sure you gave him what he wanted before you left that room, the band room for that day. He was very stern. He loved all his students. He would do anything for his students, especially those of the ones who took the initiative to learn more and learn their craft and do better at their craft. He really loved that. But as a whole, he loved his kids so much. He didn't care what it was. If he had to pay for someone out of pocket for a trip, if he had to pay for some graduation fees or prom fees, whatever, he would be there. He was there for everybody. Those who didn't have a dad, those who did have a dad but wasn't around much, whatever the case was, he was that man. He was the person to be. He was that. He was a good dude all the way around. I think we got stuck.
Okay, okay. I don't know what that was. I'm sorry, but continue. Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, he was a good guy. He was really good. I still talk to him today. Not as often, but I do check up on him here and there. I was supposed to be trying to meet up with him for brunch or something, and yeah, choose him. But even at his age now, he's like 84 now, still traveling, still moving, still kicking like he was in his 40s back in the day or something. So yeah, but he's doing good now. But yeah, he was a good, very good director to us back then.
What year did he leave Corliss?
2008, and we did
To that.
try to extend it for 2 additional years. Lord, I can't remember her name, but there was a young lady that came in to try to take over for about a year or two up until 2010, but it didn't go too far. And yeah, we just got stuck with nothing now.
Okay. No, no, I understand. You know, it's something that a lot of schools had to contend with a lot of different issues.
Yeah.
But with with you being alumni, going back and helping Corliss, did you ever receive any like direct criticism about um marching with the high school as opposed to just, being there as a, as an educator?
Um, Not necessarily directly to me. It was always a thing of alumni marches with Corliss for so long, which, yeah, we used to march some alumni primarily on the drum line, but not as far as the horn sections. We at least when I was at Corliss, we had a pretty decent amount of horn players to hold our own at that time. But afterwards, as the instructor, the woodwinds, that's what I primarily dealt with. Um, they would want me to perform. I never performed just to do it. They would want me to do it because they will. I was their instructor. No one was really leading the way. It was just me directing and showing them things, and then they would want me to play. So I didn't have an issue with people saying what they said about me. I mean, I'm a woodwind player, so more than likely you're not going to really hear me over the brass, but you can hear me with the brass. I was a beast back in the day. So, but yeah, that's all it was.
Why do you think that is, that there's this stigma of, you graduated already, you shouldn't be, still playing? Because, in the bigger picture, it's like, look, man,
Mm-hmm.
this this is still my school. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And if you see a bigger picture beyond just being in it, it's kind of like if hypothetically Michael Jordan became a coach, but still wanted to suit up in the fourth quarter. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it was looked at like that. Like, yo, you cheating. Like, you shouldn't.
Right.
Stop. You playing against high school students. Like, why do you think that stigma existed? And was it uh you know do you see it as a legitimate criticism?
No, it's not I do believe not a criticism. I feel like the students should definitely have their own time to shine. We had our 4 years, however long you marched in high school. We had our time, so let's let these kids do what they do. We had our rivalries with everybody. We enjoyed that rivalry, whatever. Let them have the same fun that we had without us being apart. But
Yeah.
some cases that the directors would prefer their alumni to play as for additional assistance. Some cases the directors just let them stay to the side, come and help out behind the scenes. But when it's time to perform, let my kids handle it. Excuse me. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my stand. I think let the kids handle it, but only if the director approves it. Okay.
Right. Right. And in my opinion, historically, um with schools that were considered the dominant or popular bands in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
um as they transitioned to the 2000s, some of them did have to experience a steep decline from perhaps what they once were.
Right.
And no disrespect, but I kind of saw Corliss kind of in that light. And obviously, certain things extend just beyond the talent of the students, and it's more so this is a CPS thing, this is a South Side of Chicago thing,
Mm-hmm.
as a reason why some bad programs do decline.
Mm-hmm.
But along with that decline, sometimes comes the um like I say, becoming somewhat of harsh criticism. So, like,
Right.
to give another basketball example, Russell Westbrook,
Mm-hmm.
for all of the great things that he's accomplished,
Right.
throughout his career. It takes 1 year with the Lakers, and suddenly he's seen as like the butt of a joke of a league.
Right.
Did you ever feel that with Corliss? And you know, what was it like for you? Because you graduated in '03.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for you to see Corliss go from being seen as a powerhouse band program in Chicago to, being seen more so in a joking manner, as if Corliss was not still a serious competitor?
Yeah. Um, it is what it is. I mean, I'm around for Corliss regardless. If Corliss was still around today with 10 members, it's going to be what it's going to be. Corliss is going to still do what they got to do. We are going to show up, show out, and we're going to go home. That's it. That's all. But the later years of Corliss, I think after 2006 is when he really took a hit. But Mr. Burton Eyes, as long as he was still kicking and he had members that wanted to do it, he was going to keep going. So I mean, I still feel like Corliss was still a powerhouse as far as a stand band and things like that, but
Mhm.
it's smaller number. That was it.
You're right. You're right. What do you actually see? I mean, can you kind of explain that difference between being small but still capable versus just falling off? You know what I mean? Because, like you just said, numbers aren't everything.
Right, exactly. So at one point of our history, Corliss reached to about 200 members for about 2 years that I remember when I was there.
Mm.
Um, so it was cool to be that big, but you also have a lot of people hiding behind the players of the band. And then once you get smaller, now everybody has to play that part. You can't hide behind nobody else because now you're going to be heard regardless of whatever part you play. You're going to be heard and you're going to be seen. So the way Corliss was set up, we always had this killer instinct mentality. That's something I was brought up on during our time, and we pass it down to the later classes. But as long as you have this killer instinct, it don't matter who's in front of you. They could be 4,000 members deep. They could be 150. They could be 10 members. Whatever the size of the band, that's your opponent at that moment in time. So you're going to do what you got to do, and that's what it's going to be. But some people look at it as if they get nervous. It's like, oh, no, we were a small band. Now I got to do a little more. I'm shy. I'm not used to this. But you got to forget all of that. When you got that horn, you got a uniform on representing your school, whatever, your mascot, whatever, you got to do a job. You got a job to do. So if you can't perform it, I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, the smaller bands, I think it just makes better for smaller groups because they tend to work a little harder than the bigger group.
I mean, yeah, you're right about that. I can relate personally to that.
Yeah.
Um, who was so you mentioned Julian. Would you say
Mhm.
that Julian was your biggest rival band?
It was it was only because we shared the same street. But the biggest thing for us, our biggest rivalry was Terrell. I'm sure a lot of folks will attest to this. But when Terrell, around the time he graduated, he was still doing his videography thing and his camera thing. But we would notice him outside of some of our rehearsals when it was time to play Julian or Jackie Robinson or something was coming up. We'll see him peek around the corner with his camera, watching to see what we're gonna do for our show and this and that. And I
Terrell, come on, man.
listen, Terrell, hey, I know you're gonna see this, Terrell, but it was true. But yeah, we used to. I remember 2002. Corliss, we had about 160 members at that time. So we were hearing rumors that Julian was going to have this big old band. They had like 8 to 10 tubas and blah blah blah. We're like, oh, okay, well, that's not going to surprise us because we are the show. We're the band that people come to see at Jackie Robinson. We end this parade. That's why we're last, But we pop up. Yeah, Julian came about 150 or so swole. They had all these horn players in new uniforms out in the street. But we was like, oh, y'all brought the size, but y'all don't sound like the size. It was like y'all just
Mm,
trying to match what Corliss was doing, in my opinion. But they also
mm.
copied our drum major style with the tuxedos. Go back to 1990. Corliss was originally doing the tuxedo style with the drum majors. So yeah, but it's a lot of things. Julian was our number one competitor. Yeah.
So what you saying is Dunbar wasn't even in the running. I'm instigating.
Uh, okay. So 99 to 2002 Dunbar, in my opinion, was never competition. Never. The only thing they had over us was drilling. That was it.
Mm.
Once Mr. Mitchell took over, that's when they became surreal competition. He really changed the dynamic of Dunbar, and they became like this beast from under him. So that's when I feel like Dunbar was really competition. Now they did have great individual players before Mr. Mitchell, but as a collective band, no, not y'all, not for me.
Hmm. Hmm. That's that's just interesting for me because I started in band in 2000 in 2003. So my
Oh,
so
okay.
my I mean I come from a different era. So that's interesting to hear from a historical perspective.
Yeah.
Did you have a rival as an individual musician?
Let's see. So I started when I started. Well, I started playing in '97. I was living in Alabama at the time, so I
Oh.
had 2 years already by the time I came to Corliss. But I didn't really meet any for real. Okay, my section leader at Corliss, yes, he was a beast. I liked him. But my real competition was not until a girl named Patrice. I met her at CVS when we had the CPS mass band, I think 2001, and that it was just something about her tone, the way she played. She played like she loved what she did. She played like she loved her horn, and that was the first person that was like, yeah, competition, yes, but also something I could relate to on a playing level. We could sit down and just throw some stuff in the air and be like, oh, I could do that too. I like that. I like how you feel with this or whatever the case was. It was just, yeah, she was my number one. The second person was Gecko. He was on tenor sax at the time. And like when I met him though, I started off on tenor sax as well. But when I met him, me and him were literally matching sound for sound, ability. The abilities were about the same. It was like hands down, no competition. It was just like, oh, you put me on my toes because now you're just as good as me, but I'm not going to slack around you. So I think we all pushed each other a little bit back in that time, but I didn't really have competition. I just had people who I really admired as a player.
Yeah. So with that, all right. All right, I'm about to get to a section because you just mentioned a name that's very popular in Chicago. So
Mm-hmm.
with the All Star Band,
Mm-hmm.
first off, can you explain uh what led to the formation of the Chicago All Star Band and how that was different from the Chicago Mass Band?
So the Chicago All Star Band, the first year it started, I was not a part. I think that was 2000, and they performed at Bud Billiken. But the second year, 2001, is when I started coming. It lasted like 3 years. It was mostly all the directors at the time: Mr. Key, Mr. Burton, Mr. Otis. I believe Mr. Doherty was at Morgan Park at the time. Um, and a few others, band directors from Harper and a few other schools. They all got together and chose to start the CPS band. CPS also was behind it. That's when we had Paul Vallis. He was very, very supportive of the arts in the schools. But once he left is when everything started declining as far as the arts go.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it was just mostly the collective of the CPS directors coming together and wants to do something more than just their programs or whatever it was, during that time. So I think that's what kicked it off. And it did last for like 3 years and then 2 years separated before the All Star band started around.
Hmm. Uh, so are you a founding member of the All Star Band, or were you just there, around the time that it started?
So for the CPS All Star band,
Oh, no, 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 no. I'm sorry. The
oh,
the the um the Windy City All Star Band.
so when the All Star band started, it started 2005. Travell had the idea of starting the band. At the time, the name was Joyce W. Nash All Star Band. She was a member of his church. She marched at Pine Bluff as she played mellophone, and I think she had died from sickness, some type of sickness or something. So he started the band under her name as a memory to her. And then, yes, I was a founding member at that point as just to come out, let's see what's up. It's a new band, new thing going on. So yeah, I was an original member starting from
Okay.
that time. Yeah.
Okay. What now is my understanding that at some
Mhm.
point there was um a splintering of All Star bands where you had
Mhm.
the Windy City All Star Band or the Chicago I don't know All Star Band. Can
Mhm.
can you can you tell me what happened there and why?
Um, so Joyce W. Nash was up for about a year. Um, we were rehearsing at like I said, back and forth. We would the parks, to Trevel's house in the basement. Which we really appreciate his mom for letting us come in the house. All these people in her house making all this noise, like we really appreciated that during that time. But it started off as Joy Stubborn Ash. A lot of folks really weren't feeling the name and or whatever. And then people were like, "Well, who is she? Why are you even march under her name and this and that?" A lot of folks just didn't understand why they had the name. So forth. We had some elections. I got voted as president, and then at that point, it was like, cool. So now I'm bringing fresh ideas. Oh, we need to change his name. So what are we going to start? What are we going to go with? We thought about Chicago All Stars or anything pertaining to Chicago, but we just stuck with Windy City, being that's our nickname. We stuck with that. We chose a set of colors and all our founding rules and things like that. We just started making strides to a better direction once I became president. At that point, we were only the Windy City All Star Band for 2006 through 2009. Trevel was still a part of that all of those 4 years. And then once we parted ways with Chicago State, that's when we just took a hiatus until 2013.
Now you just mentioned Chicago State.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask a question because I was there. I don't want to keep repeating my side of the story every time, but for
right.
people like you who are there and very prominent and instrumental, I gotta ask, what was the promise that got that band room filled up when it comes to the Chicago State pep band? Now, I want to be clear before you begin to tell your side that there is a difference between that Chicago State pep band of was that 2008 2009, something like that, versus the current Chicago State University marching band.
Yes, difference.
So go ahead.
So okay, well, that's just a background. Summer of 2006, we were practicing at Thule Park, and while we were outside, we had the conditions, so we were marching around and planning things outside. The neighborhood kids would constantly bother our dancers and things that we had at the time, or just our girls in the band, period. And that became an unsafe situation. So I end up, Stephanie was attending Chicago State at the time, and she set me up with Mark Smith, who was over the music department. And went and talked to him. I explained the program, showed him, documentation of what we do and things. And he really was intrigued. Of course, we didn't have any money. We were a non-for-profit. We just kids trying to do something, so we didn't have any funding. So met with him. He liked what we did. Our trade-off to them was that we would perform as their pep band for the first year that we're at Chicago State. They weren't going to charge us any fees or anything, so we would be their pep band. We said, oh, cool, that's a good deal. They got us T-shirts. They bought a couple of instruments for us to play. We started off small in number. We were always small. Windy City was always small in number. So the first year we were performing as the pep band. The basketball team liked us. Mark came and checked us out. He liked what we did and all that stuff. Cool. Then coming towards the second year, after coming off that summer break, that's when we started getting rumors or word of that they wanted to pay us stipends of so much money to be their pep band. So we were like, okay, cool. So now I'm looking at it as, okay, so not only is Windy City going to have numbers, but now we have a stronger possibility of becoming Chicago State's marching band, because we were also petitioning to be Chicago State's marching band at that time. So we they gave us a promise of a stipend. We did so many games and rehearsals, and near the end of the season, when we found out that there was no money, there was no stipend, there was no nothing. It was just a hoax that appeared out of the blue or whatever. So we kept some numbers up until the very last game of that season, 2009, and then at that point it was kind of like, I mean, I guess we have to call it stops from here or something,
Yeah.
So that was that.
Would you say that stipend issue was something that had to do with the music department specifically, or whose responsibility or who do we place blame at the foot of?
Honestly, I don't know who to place the blame for, because at that particular time, I did not have that conversation as far as stipends. Me personally, I was always against paying anybody to come and play. If you can't come for the love of it, we're not going to pay you to do it, because now you're only here for the money. Once the money is dry, you out the door. So I'm not going to waste my time, talking about money, paying anybody. So I never had that conversation, so I can't tell you who, where, what, and why.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand that. And that's to kind of go back to that night, I remember it was a band room full. I mean, it was jam packed in there,
Mm-hmm.
and Alex Flowers is the one who stood in front of everybody and was like, "Look,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, but what you thought you were going to get, you're not going to be able to get." And so,
Right.
if you're still willing to stay, then we're glad to have you, and
Mm-hmm.
if not, then we understand.
Right.
And personally, I looked at it like, well, this first off, I was like, this really messed up just because
Yeah.
why is Alex being up there standing there by himself like that? There should be somebody. Mind you, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
Chicago State University student at the time myself, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, nah, this ain't right. Why is nobody, no head of the department or some type of administrator
Mm-hmm.
there, or somebody? But it shouldn't be this guy coming all the way from the west suburbs,
Mm-hmm.
and standing in front of standing in front of all these people. But
Right.
you said that was your mentality, is don't pay if you're not here for the love of it. Why come at all?
Mm-hmm.
Does that um translate also to off of Chicago State? Just
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking,
Mm-hmm.
scholarships. 'Cause that's kind of exactly what that is, where some people don't have it to travel, and they
Right.
and they are dependent on money in order to even be able to get to school, and to
Mm-hmm.
be able to do that, because
Right.
it's either I stay here and get this scholarship money, or I need
Mm-hmm.
to go and get a job and I won't be able to play.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I do remember, we did last around a little while. We actually did perform at Chicago State's band. I have a banner and everything. I'll show you the picture of it really quick. But we had a banner. We started a program. It was in our conversation. We were going to be I can't find it now. But we were going to be Chicago State's band. It was going to be like a extracurricular activity or something like that, and they would have us listed as the band program for an additional credit to the student if they were a student of Chicago State. But the
Mm,
problem we ran into was we didn't have a degree director at the time. All of our directors were no degree, or they were already in school as a um, music major. So we
mm,
didn't have a director for that then. The director, I'm not saying the names, but the person who could have been our director at the time was not looking to do any marching band activity whatsoever. So we could not go that route. Um, and we just chose to try it as we could. But I think that just, oh, that no. So it led into when we started to perform, when we got the petition to be their band, when we started to perform as their band, it was what was told us they would give us scholarships to attend. Whatever members wanted to attend Chicago State, they would give us scholarships for that. But
um,
of course, that fell through. I think they had a new president coming in. Something was going on at the top of their head at that time, and yes, all that fell through.
I understand. So just to pivot off of that and go back to the music aspect,
Mm-hmm.
was there any difficulty in any of these incarnations of mass band, all star band,
Mm-hmm.
Chicago State pep band, and you all coming from different schools and coming to play together? Was there ever this kind of difficulty in, like, this is my style, this is your style, like, how do we come together as one band?
There was difficulty in the very beginning because you had all these people learning different things from high school and watching colleges that want to do what they saw or what they learned. But one thing that I was stern on is when I became president and I was more in front of the band. Um, I was stern on we need to create our own identity. Period. There was whatever you've learned outside of this. leave it outside of this. But when we're here, we are Windy City. This is what we're going to focus on. But nothing extra was going to be done. It took a while to break some of the habits, but I was very stern on that. We are not going to look like what somebody else is already doing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how much of a challenge was that when you have people coming from Jackson State or Southern UAPB,
Mm-hmm.
um, where it's like those schools have their distinct identity,
Mm-hmm.
and what ultimately do you think the Windy City's identity was musically speaking?
Musically speaking, we were trying to create an identity. Chicago itself never really had its own identity because we don't have any HBCUs here.
Hmm.
So we every school was pretty much copying what they saw at College U anyway, or whatever the director's idea was for their program. But as far as Windy City, we were trying to create something that would become Chicago. What they would know us for. When they hear our sound, they would know, oh, that's Chicago, or that's the Midwest, or whatever. But it was a little difficult, mostly with the alumni, the kids who were in high school at the time. It was not hard whatsoever because they came in eager to learn, eager to play. They wanted to get these scholarships to college, so they were eager to do what needed to be done to be a better musician overall. But the alumni, a lot of them came back with first time. Some people go to college and they start smelling their stuff because you playing better than 10 people in your section or whatever the case was. But when you come here, that's cool. You got your acknowledgments, you got your credits or whatever while you're there. But we're here. We're in Chicago. This is what we're doing in this program. So if you can't deal with that, then we'll see you around the way. And that's what a lot of folks chose to do, is go about their business. So it is what it is.
Yeah. What do you remember from the days of the Chicago Marching Connection and Chicago Bandheads online forums?
A lot of shit talking. A lot of friendships were made because of the shit talking. Uh, that was really it. A lot of shit talking. Like we could not wait. We knew who was gonna play who that Thursday or Friday night, especially the night games. We knew who was playing who. So being that we were at Corliss, of course we're gonna wait around after practice, sit at the benches behind Gately or something, and wait till the band show up. Other kids will talk a bunch of shit and we'll see him outside or whatever the case was. But that's what it was. A bunch of shit talking and friendships that was created during that time.
Yeah, that's what I remember too, man. A couple
Yeah.
rivalries too. A couple, you know what I mean?
It was
It's
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
In the era before social media, before, Facebook and being able to at somebody or hashtag something,
Exactly.
those forums was it.
Right. The only video you had was a VHS tape. Yeah, that was it.
And the only two people that I can remember that consistently had footage,
Mhm.
obviously Terrell was a one-stop shop for mostly
Right.
any footage, but James from Proviso East, I remember
Mm.
he definitely had some things that he was very stingy with, but
Yeah.
what I mean, he came up off a couple of them, so
Right.
shout out to him, man.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
who are your top three band directors? Take that however you want.
Mhm.
Chicago, city, suburb.
Mhm. I will say I won't say top three, but I will rank them based off of my respect for them. Um, Not adding to the list, but of course, Mr. Burton to be top of my list for me because that was my home director. But I did respect Mr. Key for what he did with his program. I respected Mr. Wright at Proviso East, um, Mr. Doherty when he was at Morgan Park. So those are my top three, just based on what they were doing with the programs at the time. That was be my top three.
So you just mentioned Mr. Wright at Proviso East.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe what that rivalry was like? Because it's one thing to have your rivalry within schools within the city, but
Right.
when you talked about suburb
Mm-hmm.
bands, excuse me, it became a different monster because that's when you started
Right.
talking about Proviso Township and
Mm-hmm.
and then even some of the South suburb bands, Rich Central, Rich South. What
Right.
was that rivalry like between the city and the suburbs?
So as far as the south suburbs, there was no rivalry because we never saw them. The only band that ever came to the city was Rich Central, I believe, and then that was about it. They'll do a parade and they going home. We never really sat and had a battle with none of them, so that was never a discussion. But East and West was our biggest competition, and Marshall at the time.
Sure, yeah,
When
yeah.
they was well West Side, but yes, they were some of our competition. Corliss and Proviso East had a big rivalry, little rivalry going in 2003. Howard McGee, when he was on the radio, he attended Corliss, but he would went on the radio one day and said something about Proviso East Band being the best high school with the best band, and this and that. And we was like, hold up, how you gonna diss us? And you from the home team. So of course that started some little spark there. So I remember Jackie Robinson 03. We wanted to see them so bad, but they did not stay around after the parade. They left, went back to the school, whatever the case, whatever the director told them to do. But we wanted to see them at the end of Jackie, but they did not stay around. So 2004 come around for the Chicago Classic. They wasn't no running this time. We were right there, so they had a little battle in the stands or whatever. But that was that. I guess we settled that beef at this time. But yeah, I think as far as the suburbs, as far as Corliss go, that was our biggest suburban rivalry, Proviso East.
Proviso East. Yeah. All right. All right. So, how connected to you, or how aware are you of the current landscape of Chicago bands?
Honestly, when Windy City stopped 7 years ago, I completely disconnected. I tried to stick around when things shifted to Chicago Mass Band, but when the All Star Band scene started in the beginning, I was there from age 20 up until 32. So when CMB started, it was like I'm taking a break. I need to completely get all of this shit off of me. I need to start focusing on other things. So the last 7 years, I haven't been too connected. I'm still a band head. I still try to check in and see what's up. But as far as the Chicago bands, I know a lot of them are still struggling primarily. Um, I have tried to help out a few, mostly Dunbar with a few players at the time, over time. But yeah, I just kind of disconnected myself for a minute from that.
No, listen. I think a lot of us alumni in Chicago can relate to having disconnected for one reason or another,
Mm-hmm.
and to varying degrees. But where do you see the future of Chicago land area bands?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of where we can go and how do we get there?
Um, I think the bands are starting to come around for the most part. We have a lot of our peers who are now directors with their own programs, and I think that's going to help bring back the mentality that we used to have. A lot of kids are a little softer now, so it's going to be a little. I know that's a little push in some cases, but um, I do think we will come back. It's just going to take a little while, especially if we don't have the backing from CPS and all the funding and stuff that's needed to continue to host the band. Um, but I do feel like it is going in a good direction though, with those who are around now.
All right, all right. Well, Fred, I mean, I really don't have any other questions for you, but do you have any? I don't know. Is it are there any other messages that you want to get out there, or any records that you may want to set straight just from the history standpoint of Chicago bands?
Um, Not really as far as the history. I think everybody knows our history, no matter who wants to listen or not. But I think they know the history of who's done what up to whatever point.
Yeah.
Um, I do. I'm grateful for Windy City. I'm grateful for everything that we did. All those who were a part and believed in what we were doing to help us get where we are. I do hope to see CMB grow in number this year. I hope we get more student participation and alumni participation um, to be able to compete now with the South. Really, no matter what number we are, that's what we need to stop focusing on. Don't focus on the number. Do your part as your musician, as your bandsman, and go out there and handle business. It don't matter if it's just 25 of us. Windy City did it. CMB can do it. Anybody, Chicago, Chicago. We get down. Like we don't need to rely on numbers for anything. So I just hope that CMB is successful this summer. I hope everybody comes out and do their part, and let's just have a good summer this year. But also support your fellow directors if they need you. Alumni don't come in doing anything crazy with the kids. Leave all that stuff outside. But yeah, let's just move forward. Let's have a clean slate. Let's clear our brains and move forward with the same objective of music.
Man, I couldn't have said it any better myself. That's definitely something to go on. I won't go on, but
Right?
that's something to go on, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah,
you said a
yeah.
lot. You really said a lot without even saying a lot. So I
Mhm.
look, Fred, I really appreciate this, man. It's been an honor speaking to you tonight.
Definitely. Same here.
Again, we all view you as a legend, as an OG musician, as an instructor, as an educator, not only for Corliss, but what you've done for the city of Chicago. So I really appreciate it.
No
This has
problem. I
been
appreciate you.
yes, sir, yes, sir. So that being said, y'all, this has been another episode of Pre-Drill, KAO. I am K Alpha, and this has been Fred. So y'all have a good night. Peace.